The restaurant was buzzing with energy, glasses, clinked laughter, floated in waves, and the soft hum of background jazz filled every corner like a well-rehearsed performance. Golden fairy lights dangled from the ceiling, casting a warm, flattering glow over the long mahogany table where my team sat. We were celebrating, or rather they were. I had imagined this night 100 different ways. I'd rehearsed my reaction in the mirror. The smile, the humble nod, maybe a few tears after 5 years of late nights crisis management and stepping up whenever someone else stepped out. This was supposed to be my moment. I adjusted the hem of my navy blue dress, the one I bought just for tonight. Simple, elegant, serious, like the role I thought I'd be stepping into. Richard, my boss, stood at the head of the table. He tapped his wine glass with a fork. "Can I have everyone's attention?" The chatter quieted. I felt my heart thud against my ribcage. I folded my hands under the table to hide the way they trembled. He raised his glass. "Tonight, I want to recognize someone truly exceptional. Someone who has shown remarkable dedication, leadership, and talent in just a short time here." Short time. My smile tightened. Richard beamed, turning toward the far end of the table. "Claire." My stomach dropped. In just 3 months, Claire has made an enormous impact. Her creativity, problem-solving, and initiative have exceeded every expectation, which is why I'm thrilled to announce her promotion to Senior Operations Manager. Applause erupted, glasses raised. Claire, blushing, looked genuinely surprised. Maybe she hadn't expected it either. I sat frozen. The stem of my champagne flute felt like it might snap in my hand, and then Richard turned to me. "And of course, Samantha." There it was. Some acknowledgement, some sliver of what I was owed. "You've been such a valuable member of the team. We really appreciate everything you do." That was it. A pat on the head. A corporate thank you card in the form of a sentence. The clapping continued around me. I forced my lips into a smile, clapped along, and whispered a weak, "She deserves it," even though I couldn't feel my own voice. Then the final slap. Richard laughed and said loud enough for the whole table to hear, "She does more than you already. You should take notes." The table chuckled. Claire muttered something about not meaning to outshine anyone, but it didn't matter. The words were already out there. I laughed too. What else could I do, cry-beg, ask the man who had strung me along for months, why he had just humiliated me in front of everyone I worked with? So I lifted my glass in a toast, smiled wide, and swallowed the burn that wasn't from the alcohol. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of noise and faces. I smiled. I nodded. I complimented Claire's speech. I even took a photo of the team grinning behind my phone, like nothing inside me had cracked open. But when the night finally ended, and I stepped out into the cool evening air alone, I pulled out my phone. My fingers were shaking slightly, not from nerves, but clarity. Subject, resignation letter. Submission, body, Dear Richard. Please find my official resignation letter attached. Effective immediately. Best, Samantha. I hovered for only a second, then hit send. As the email left my outbox, I felt something unexpected relief. But I wasn't done. Not even close. Monday morning felt surreal. You'd think after resigning via email I wouldn't show up. But I did. Not out of guilt. Not because I was unsure, I just wanted to see what it felt like. To sit there one last time. To walk through those front doors without flinching. To watch how people looked at me when they didn't know what I had already decided. The receptionist smiled at me like always. My team waved, gathered around the coffee machine. Claire, the newly anointed, was already at her desk, cheeks still flushed from all the praise. The office buzzed with the kind of morning optimism I used to fake every Monday. I walked in like it was any other day, but something inside me had shifted. I wasn't there to work. I was there to witness. I took my time settling in, booted up my computer, placed my bag just so. I didn't need to, but part of me wanted Richard to come to me. I didn't want to knock on his door. I wanted him to feel the sudden imbalance, the space I'd already started to pull away from him. And right on cue, his office door flew open. "Samantha, my office, now." His tone cut through the chatter like glass. Heads turned. You could hear the air change. People looked down at their keyboards pretending to be busy. But I could feel it, the collective tightening of attention. No one had ever heard Richard speak like that before. I stood slowly, smoothed my blouse, walked across the floor. The door clicked shut behind me. Richard was seated at his desk, my resignation email printed and splayed in front of him, like it offended him just by existing. "You're leaving?" he asked, eyes scanning my face. "Yes." Effective immediately, he leaned forward like he couldn't believe it. This is out of nowhere. We didn't even talk." I almost laughed. "Like we talked about Claire's promotion?" I asked calmly. His jaw clenched. "That wasn't personal. She outperformed you." I tilted my head. "She's been here 3 months. She made an impression," he said, defensive now. "She brings new energy innovation." I smiled, but not with warmth. "You know, I've been here for 5 years," I said. "I've cleaned up every mess you've ignored, trained every intern who stayed past. 1 week, stayed late, came in early, never complained, when my ideas were repackaged and presented in meetings like they came from someone else." He opened his mouth to argue, but I held up my hand. "I'm not here to debate," I said. "This isn't a negotiation." "Samantha," he said more urgently, "I appreciate everything you've done. I do. We need people like you. People like me. The ones who work but don't shine. The ones who build but don't get credit. The ones who stay too long. You don't want to lose me," I said, "but you had no problem overlooking me, laughing at me, telling me to take notes from someone who still doesn't know how to generate a budget report." His face flushed. "She's learning. Let her learn without using me as the punchline." He was silent. He looked smaller now. Then he asked more quietly, "Where are you going?" I leaned back in the chair. "Do you remember Andrew Carter?" His face froze. Of course he remembered. The former CFO. The one Richard forced out because he challenged him too often in leadership meetings. "He reached out to me 2 months ago," I said. "Offered me a director-level position at his new firm." I turned it down. His face brightened slightly, hope relief. "I turned it down because I was loyal. Because I thought I had a future here." He nodded slowly. But Friday night changed that. His eyes dropped to the email again. My resignation. The final line. "So you're really leaving?" "I start next Monday." "Is this about the promotion?" "Look, maybe I made a mistake. Maybe we rushed it. But we can fix this." Now, he sounded like someone flailing. I recognized it. I'd seen it in clients right before a contract fell through. He shifted tactics. "You're making an emotional decision." If I was emotional, I said I would have stormed out at the party. I didn't. I waited. I sent that email with a clear head. He leaned back, trying to regain his composure. "You've got a non-compete, you know. Going to a competitor could violate." "I'm not going to a competitor," I said. "I'm going to someone who values me." The power in the room shifted. I felt it. I stood up, walked to the door, paused before leaving. "You know what's funny, Richard," I said, looking back at him. "You only realize someone's worth when they walk away." I left him there in his office with my resignation letter and the sudden realization that his safety net was gone. Back at my desk, I opened my inbox, forwarded the resignation email to the entire leadership team. Subject line, official notice, Samantha Green. Body effective immediately. I am stepping down from my position. It has been an experience I will not forget. Best, Samantha. Simple, clear, professional. But the message between the lines was unmistakable. I'm done being quiet. And the wildfire started instantly. Whispers, Slack messages, side glances, heads peeking up like meerkats. Rachel, one of the few people I actually liked, walked over. "Samantha, is it true?" I nodded, smiling gently. She looked stunned. "Wow, just wow. I didn't think you'd ever leave." "Neither did Richard," I said, grabbing my notebook. She let out a half laugh. "Everyone here knows you deserve that role." From the corner of my eye, I saw Claire watching, her expression unreadable. She opened her mouth, maybe to speak, maybe to apologize, but closed it again. I didn't care. This wasn't about her. This was about me finally choosing myself. 10 minutes later, a calendar invite popped up on my screen. Subject urgent, let's talk. From Richard Morris. Time, 15 minutes, location, his office. Desperate men do desperate things. I took my time, walked back to his office. He was sitting behind his desk, the arrogance drained from his face. "We can fix this," he said again. "We can't." "Samantha, be reasonable. We can match the offer. We can create a new title." "You're too late," I said. "I didn't leave because of a title. I left because of how I was treated." Silence. "Every time I showed up, you looked through me. Every win I had was credited to someone else. And now that I've walked, you suddenly want to talk." He blinked. I leaned forward slightly. "I don't want to be valuable only when I'm gone. That's what stung him the most, not the loss of a worker, the loss of leverage. I left his office for the second time that day, but this time it wasn't just a goodbye. It was a promise I'm not coming back. And everything you took for granted, it's going with me. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch when I walked out of that building for the last time. No security escort, no farewell cake. Just the sound of the elevator dinging and my own reflection in the polished chrome doors, staring back like a stranger who'd finally stopped apologizing. I thought I'd feel angry, maybe scared. I didn't. I felt light, unburdened, like I had finally stopped asking someone else for permission to exist. The following Monday, I walked into the sleek glass office of Carter and Associates with nothing but my tote bag and a single goal to never let anyone undervalue me again. Andrew met me in the lobby with a warm smile. "You're exactly what we need," he said before I even stepped into my new office. My new office. It was smaller than Richard's, sure, but the windows stretched floor to ceiling, and the desk didn't creak like it might collapse under years of indifference. There were no photos, yet no personal touches. But I didn't need them. The space already felt more mine than anything I'd had before. That first day flew by. Introductions, meetings, strategy reviews, and then the moment I didn't expect. During my very first leadership sync, Andrew turned to me and said, "Samantha, I want you to take the lead on our restructuring initiative. With your experience, you're the best person for it." Just like that. No forms to fill, no long speeches, no hoops to jump through. He just saw it. And that was the first time I felt it too. This is what it feels like to be trusted. I stayed late that night. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to. I wasn't cleaning up someone else's mess. I was laying a foundation. I thought that would be the end of the story. I was wrong. It started with a message from Rachel. Rachel, Monday, 4:42 p.m. "You will not believe what's happening over here. Richard's losing it." I blinked. Rachel, 4:43 p.m. "Claire's floundering. She doesn't know how to handle half the things you used to manage. Richard had to call an emergency meeting." I smirked just a little. Rachel, 4:45 p.m. Also, 3 clients asked for you by name. When they found out you left, let's just say they weren't happy. I didn't know what to say. Not because I was surprised, but because I wasn't. These weren't just clients. They were relationships I'd nurtured for years, quietly without credit. I knew their business models better than some of their own analysts. I remembered their kids' names, their Q4 panic cycles, the weird way one CFO liked his decks formatted. Of course they noticed I was gone. A few days later, my assistant knocked on my door. "You have a call on line 1, she said. "Dawson and Company. They asked for you directly." I froze. Dawson and Co. Cheers was one of the biggest accounts at my old firm. Premium tier multi-year contract quarterly check-ins with execs. I picked up the phone, heartbeat steady. "Hello," Samantha said, the voice on the other end, Mark Dawson, the CEO. "Heard you made a move." I did. Carter and Associates. "That's right." He paused and said, "Let's talk." So, by the end of the second week, 3 major clients had reached out. All unprompted. All ready to switch. I wasn't chasing revenge. I didn't have to. They were just following the person who actually did the work. It was quiet, professional, deadly. Back at my old firm, things were unraveling fast. Rachel kept feeding me updates, half guilty, half giddy. Rachel, Thursday, 11:02 a.m. "Claire is drowning. Richard's yelling in closed-door meetings. The board's furious. Everyone's panicking." Rachel, 11:04 a.m. "Investors are pressuring him to fix this, but you're the fix, and you're gone." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I did. There was something strange about watching it all fall apart from a distance. I wasn't angry anymore. I was just watching the story unfold without needing to narrate it. And then came the email. Subject: A proposal from Richard Morris. "Samantha, I'd like to have a conversation. I believe we can come to a mutually beneficial arrangement if you're open to it. Let's set up a meeting next week to discuss options. Looking forward to your response, Eucorsatius." Richard. I stared at the screen. It was almost funny. The man who once told me to take notes from someone who couldn't finish a presentation was now sending calendar invites like a desperate ex. I replied, Subject: a proposal. Richard. "I'm available for a brief meeting Monday at 10 a.m. Let me know if that works for you. Best, Samantha." I wasn't walking in to negotiate. I was walking in to watch him squirm. Monday, 10 Uro a.m. Familiar lobby. Familiar fake smile from the receptionist. Familiar hush as I passed desks full of people who used to ignore me now watching me like a ghost come back to haunt the building. Richard's door was already open. He stood as I walked in, tried to smile. He looked awful. Dark circles, slack jaw. The weight of consequences hanging off his suit like it didn't fit anymore. "Thanks for coming in," he said, gesturing to the chair. I sat, crossed my legs, placed my hands in my lap. He didn't waste time. "We need you back." I said nothing, just let it hang. "I underestimated your role here," he continued. "I'll admit that. But we can make this right. If you return, I'm prepared to offer you a substantial raise, a senior title, full autonomy over your department." He trailed off, waiting for a flicker of interest. There was none. So I said slowly, "You had 5 years to see my value. 5 years to promote me. 5 years to show basic respect." He opened his mouth. "And instead, you gave my job to someone with 3 months of experience, told me to take notes, and now you're hemorrhaging clients, and suddenly I'm worth a title." "Samantha, let me ask you something," I said. "If I never left, would you be offering me any of this right now?" Silence. His lips pressed together. That was all the answer I needed. "I see," I said, standing. "You didn't miss me. You missed the results of my work. The calm I brought to chaos. The trust I built for your company that you never credited me for." He clenched his jaw. "You're walking away from a stable position. For what startup gamble." "No," I said. "I'm walking toward a company that saw me, that wanted me before they needed me." And then, I added softly, like a final echo, "You should take notes, Richard." Walking out of Richard's office that day didn't feel like closure. It felt like ignition. I wasn't just leaving a job, I was stepping into the version of myself I had been suppressing for years. The part of me that was done playing small, done softening my voice to make others comfortable, done waiting for validation that was never going to come. Back at Carter & Associates, everything moved fast, but never chaotically. There was structure, direction, and strangely enough, freedom. I had autonomy over my department within the first week. No micromanaging, no second guessing. Andrew didn't care how many hours I logged or how visible I was in meetings. He cared that things worked, and I made sure they did. The first project I led was a restructuring of our operations workflow. I redrew the playbook from scratch, and the team followed without hesitation. Not because I barked orders, but because I knew what I was doing, and for the first time in a long time, they knew it too. And slowly, I began to feel something I hadn't in years. Excitement. The kind that wakes you up at 5 a.m. without an alarm, because your brain's already brimming with ideas. The kind that pulls you into long working weekends, not out of fear, but passion. I reconnected with the part of me that used to love building things, that used to get high off problem solving, that used to get joy from seeing a team thrive. And my team at Carter, they were thriving. I wasn't the girl who handled things behind the scenes anymore. I was the name on the strategy doc, the voice in the investor pitch, the one people looped in first, not as a backup. And the industry started to notice. By the 3rd month, we had gained 5 new clients, 3 of them former accounts from my old company. I never reached out. I never poached. They came to me. Because I didn't just leave, I took my reputation with me. One afternoon, while reviewing internal KPIs with my assistant, she paused. "You've got someone in the lobby," she said. Didn't give a name. Just said they're a former client who trusts you. I stood and walked out. It was Elaine Harper, COO of DwellSource, a $2 million account I'd supported for 3 years, without ever having my name on the email. She stood up when she saw me. "I'm sorry to drop in like this," she said. "But I didn't want to email. I wanted to look you in the eye." I blinked. "Is everything okay?" She gave a small smile. "Better now. I wanted to let you know we're ending our contract with your former firm. It's chaos over there. But more than that, it doesn't feel right supporting a place that couldn't see what they had." I didn't know what to say. I didn't have to. She extended a folder. "We'd like to move our account to Carter, on the condition that you lead it." I took the folder. My hands didn't shake. "I'd be honored," I said, and I meant it. The updates from my old firm kept coming, not because I asked, but because people talk. And when things fall apart, they talk louder. Richard had replaced me with Claire, But Claire had no infrastructure, no systems, no institutional memory. She didn't know that Client A hates bullet points, that Client B requires a personal call after every review, that the Q2 finance forecast never aligns unless you spot check line 14 manually. She was trying, but she was set up to fail. By the time I'd been at Carter for 6 months, half the team I used to work with had either quit or transferred departments. The leadership was spiraling, and investors were pulling back. Rachel's texts had turned from gleeful updates to quiet admissions of defeat. Rachel, Tuesday, 3rd, 16 p.m. They're asking questions about you in board meetings. Not directly, but it's clear they know what happened. Rachel, 3:18 p.m. You were the glue. Without you, everything's come undone. It should have made me smug. It didn't. It made me grateful that I got out when I did. I used to think loyalty was a virtue. Now I know it's only noble if it's mutual. Then came the award. Andrew had nominated me quietly. I didn't even know until he walked into my office, holding an envelope with a small smirk on his face. You're not going to like the attention, he said, but I think you'll like what it means. The envelope was from the State Women in Business Coalition. Inside was a letter. We are proud to recognize Samantha Green as one of this year's emerging powerhouse leaders for her groundbreaking restructuring work and record-setting client growth at Carter & Associates. I stared at the letter for a long time. 5 years in a company that called me dependable, and here in just 6 months I was a powerhouse. Funny how fast the world catches up once you stop waiting for permission. But nothing hit quite like the final update from Rachel. Rachel, Friday, 6:03 p.m., he's gone. Rachel, 6:04 p.m. The board forced Richard out. They said the client losses the leadership chaos, it couldn't be fixed. Investors had enough. I leaned back in my chair, stared at the skyline outside my window. I didn't smile. I didn't cheer. I just closed my eyes and let it sink in. I never had to destroy him. He did that all by himself. That evening, I stayed late at the office again. But this time it wasn't to prove anything. It was because I wanted to be there. Because I believed in what we were building. Because for the first time in a long time, my name wasn't just on the roster, it was in the story. And it was just getting started. I used to think closure came from confrontation. From one last argument, one final mic drop moment. Something clean. Final. But I learned something in those months after leaving Richard's company. Real closure doesn't come with a bang. It comes when you realize you're not even angry anymore. It comes when you wake up in the morning and don't think about who wronged you because you're too busy thinking about what you're building. Still, when the dust settled and the reports came out, I did read them. The board cited chronic leadership instability and significant client loss. Richard's name wasn't even on the final page. He had been erased the same way he had tried to erase me quietly, without credit, without acknowledgement. And that was the most fitting end of all. He always hated silence. Now he was swallowed by it. Months passed. I kept my head down and my work sharp. Carter & Associates expanded rapidly, mostly through word-of-mouth clients, speaking to other clients, saying the same thing over and over. You need to talk to Samantha. My name. Not the company. Not a department. Me. The first time that happened, Andrew looked at me across the boardroom table and just smiled. Did you ever think this would be your story? He asked. No, I said. But now I can't imagine it any other way. He nodded once. Good. And then he handed me a sealed envelope again. Inside was my contract renewal. But this time with equity. Ownership. I wasn't just building a future here. I was part of its future. That was something Richard could never offer me, because he never saw me as anything other than replaceable. Now I couldn't be bought, borrowed, or copied. The irony. Claire sent me a message a few weeks later. It was short. Hi, Samantha. I know things ended awkwardly. I just wanted to say I've always respected your work. I'm sorry if I ever made you feel otherwise. I didn't hate her. I never did. She was just a symbol of the system, not the architect of it. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Not because I was holding a grudge, but because I had nothing left to say. She was still playing a game I'd already walked away from. Every so often, someone from the old office reaches out, usually in whispers. Do you have any openings? I'm thinking of jumping. Carter's culture seems different. It is. Because we built it that way. Because we remember. We remember what it felt like to be overlooked. We remember how it feels to give everything and get nothing but a thank you card and a maybe next quarter. And we built something better. Not perfect, but better. And it started with one resignation email sent from a cold sidewalk after a party that wasn't mine. Sometimes I replay that moment in my mind. The golden fairy lights, the wine glasses clinking, Richard's voice loud and performative. She does more than you already. You should take notes. And then me laughing softly, pretending it didn't sting. I think about how long I let them underestimate me. How long I stayed silent, hoping they'd notice without me having to scream. But now I know better. Now I understand. Sometimes walking away isn't weakness. It's power. Because when someone only sees your value after you leave, they never deserved you in the first place. The last time I saw Richard purely by accident, he was sitting alone at an industry networking event. Different suit, same hollow smile. He looked at me for a long second, unsure whether to wave nod or look away. I didn't do any of those things. I just looked right through him. The way he used to look through me. He turned away first. That was enough. That was the last word. And I didn't even have to say it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do isn't to fight, argue, or explain. It's to walk away quietly, intentionally, and let your absence speak louder than your presence ever could. I didn't destroy anyone. I didn't burn bridges. I didn't need to. I just chose myself, and that was enough to shift the entire balance of power. So ask yourself this. When someone underestimates your worth, would you rather prove them wrong? Or leave and build a world where they no longer matter?